everyone, and thank you for joining today's session, Winning the War Against Ransomware. My name is Sergio. I'm a product marketing manager here at LockPoint, and today I will be your host for this webinar about ransomware and how we can use LockPoint solutions against it. In this session, we are going to delve into everything ransomware and what LockPoint can do against them. So to help me explain what LockPoint can do against this pesky ransomware, I have with me Louis Worrell. He's our dexterous sales engineer. And without further ado, I'm gonna also start talking about the agenda, but also allow me to tell you some practicalities. First of all, this session is recorded in case you haven't noticed it. There is this little tiny mention on the top of your screen about it. This way we can just share the webinar later and offer this webinar on demand for those of you who couldn't make it today. Now let's go through the agenda per se and talk about the subject at hand, which is ransomware, right? So throughout this brief yet informative session, we are going to cover how ransomware are today and how it acts, how organizations can defend against ransomware. And then we will proceed to give you some of the benefits of our security operations platform, LockPoint Converged SIEM. After that, my colleague Louis will give you a demo on how to detect and respond against ransomware using Converged SIEM. Finally, we will also take in some questions. We'll be hosting a Q&A at the end of this presentation. So if you have some burning questions along the way, feel free to add them using the Q&A feature. And you can just see it, I think it's at the bottom of your screen. And then you can use this feature to send your questions, and we will go through them during our Q&A session at the end, as I mentioned before. And now for real, let's kick this webinar. So I would like to talk about ransomware today. What is the current landscape of cybersecurity and ransomware? It's probably everyone that is here already knows, but it bears repeating, right? So ransomware is a type of malware that sneaks into your system to prevent you from getting access to your data. Okay, that's clear. In this type of attacks, we know that the adversary, whether they are hackers or state-sponsored groups, they steal and encrypt your data and demand a payment. This is normally, that's why it's called ransomware, right? Because they demand a ransom in exchange for decrypting and releasing your data. I think that's quite clear, right? But I would like to talk about more about numbers, so the current landscape. And it is estimated that 60% of all businesses were targeted by ransomware. On top of that, of all those who fell victim of them, 90% of those people, 90% saw their business operations impacted by the damage of these attacks. And that is quite a big number, right? So it's just not this little feeling of something could happen. I think it's important to address this issue that many of them can just saw a disruption in their business operations. And unfortunately, the estimation is 70% of those victims paid the ransomware because they couldn't see any other way out of it. What else? In some cases, the demands of these attackers are incredibly high, so high that sometimes they have reached amounts that surf around $40 and $80 million. But these ransomware, these attackers, okay, they are very specialized. This group of attackers are very specialized. And they can just be specialized in the way they target specific groups. So some of them target public institutions, where there is local governments, hospitals. We have seen this. This is very common in the news, right? And some others they target because perhaps they find as an easier target medium and sized company. What I'm trying to say is like no one is safe. Whether you're a large corporation or you're a small, medium-sized business, they will go for you. Although some have developed ransomware attacks that they also include extortion into their business model, because that's how lucrative it became. It became almost a business model. So they give you a deadline for a payment, and in exchange for not leaking that confidential data or even auctioning in the dark web, and that's how they also monetize their attacks. The overall recommendation that everyone gives, that we give, is not to pay. But many organizations, they can afford not to have access to their systems, so they end up paying. So these numbers that I aforementioned are very related, right? And I would like to talk a bit more how organizations can defend against ransomware. And there is no one single way. It all boils down to the way these ransomware attacks operate. So the most important, I will say, is employee training, both in creating awareness of common and latest threats, and encourage them to report. I mean, to encourage your employees to report when they see suspicious emails, because this is one of the main tactics they use to infiltrate themselves. I think it's also important to implement secure access controls, whether it's multi-factor authentication or strong passwords against brute force attacks, but also auditing privileged access accounts from time to time. Another recommendation would be to keep your software and systems up to date and install the necessary patches. As well as organizations should move from this mindset of securing their systems if attackers try to infiltrate, and chain it to when they infiltrate, because they will infiltrate, right? Attackers always use this path of least resistance, and for them there's always a way. And that's why it's so important to invest in cybersecurity. And that is why I also would like to talk about LogPoint Converged SIEM in a briefly way, which is our security operations platform. We describe Converged SIEM as an end-to-end security operations platform, as it covers the whole threat detection, investigation, and response process. When you ingest logs, Converged SIEM automatically adds threat intel, business context, and entity risk to enrich these alerts for better investigation. Converged SIEM also comes with orchestration and automation capabilities, so it saves time to the SOC team, especially when it comes to manual processes. By using fully customizable playbooks, analysts can automate their investigation and response. On top of that, it provides high visibility. So you can reach endpoints, applications, and everything in your IT infrastructure you haven't thought about it. And also it's a fully consolidated platform, right? As I mentioned before, but the key part of this is there's no need to integrate different standalone products. It comes with SIEM, with SOAR, threat intelligence, dashboards, UEBA, EDR capabilities, you name it. Even the ingestion of logs that sometimes are very difficult to ingest, like SAP logs or other business critical applications. All the products feedback each other, and they benefit from the contextual information that they all produce. And this extra benefit comes as a reduction of the total cost of ownership, as you don't have to worry about knitting different products together or buy from different vendors, but you consolidate in one vendor. Having said this, I would like to walk you through a demo, but I have an expert with me who's going to take us all of you through a demo of a hypothetical case of ransomware and how LogPoint Converged SIEM can help you detect, investigate, and respond to these type of threats that we're talking about, ransomware. So having said this, I'll pass it on to you, Louis. So the stage is all yours. I stop sharing. So whenever you want, you can just share your screen, and you can just walk us through the demo.
Thank you, Sergio. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay, guys, thank you. So in today's demo, what we want to showcase is, how phishing, for example, can be used as a mechanism to bring that malware into your environment, where the malicious payload in this situation might be ransomware. So LogPoint creates a common taxonomy of ingested logs, normalized enriched logs, and during the process of enrichment, we're adding value into those logs. So we have two scenarios. We have a scenario where we might have the email server might flag up the presence of the malware, or it could be that it's totally missed by the email server, and we are highlighting the presence by way of our enrichment process. So this is the scenario that I'll concentrate on. So from an analyst perspective, let's have a look at the incidents as it's flagged up within Logpoint. And I will search for the scenarios here. So these are the cases as they have been raised in the ITSM. And as I highlighted to you, we're looking at a case where it's not flagged by the actual mail server. So let's look at the data that sits within this alert. Now, understanding that everything within Logpoint is driven by the search query. So we're using alert rules to query the normalized enriched logs sitting in the repos at a regular cadence. And off the back of those queries and that enrichment, we can highlight the presence of malware such as phishing and ransomware. Okay, so if we take a look at the data here, we're seeing an email. We have the sender, the receiver, and the URL that's associated. Our enrichment process would have made calls out to threat intelligence feeds, where we would have taken the hash of the file and we would have processed that hash through the API call. And then we would return a score. So we're filtering based on the score, and we're looking for anything that's above 80 in this particular scenario. And this will be flagged as potential phishing. So let's go back and have a further detailed look. So these alerts are being triggered off the back of, sorry, these incidents are being created off the back of alerts that are active. And what generate these alerts again is based on queries. So let's jump into one of these alerts and have a look to see how the alert is formulated. Okay, so here we have possible phishing detected but not flagged by the mail server. And if we look into this particular alert, what we can see is a summary of the alert. We can see the query that is driven into the normalized enriched logs, and we are seeing anything that has a score beyond 80. In this case, it's 88 would be flagged. We're looking into the repos, and we have an associated alert rule ID. Now, this is very important because if you're looking to remediate leveraging the store capability, this alert rule ID is used as a trigger. So we're looking for the alert rule ID, and by way of the alert ID, we can then automate. So we use that as a trigger, and we then associate that with the automation, which is the playbook, to then remediate or to investigate further. Now, we follow the MITRE-ATT framework within Logpoint, so you'll have all of the tactic IDs associated with these alerts, and it allows us to present these alerts into our alerting dashboard so you can see what your alert posture looks like on a single pane of glass. So let's have a look now from the perspective of someone who wants to drive this through. We want to now go through the automation. So first of all, we want to do a deeper investigation. So let's jump into the SOAR side of Logpoint. And when we get here, first of all, let's have a look. We have a playbook for the further investigation. And I'll just type the word phishing in. And phishing attack not flagged by an email server. Now, first of all, you need to associate a trigger with this playbook. So before we go to the playbook, if we go to the far right, we'll see where the triggers are sitting. And we can go in and we can choose what alert is then associated with this playbook. So we will associate phishing mail detected, not flagged by mail server. And this is where we can save and then associate it with the playbook, and we make that active. So let's have a look into what occurs within the playbook. So we always start left to right. So first of all, we start with the trigger. So the trigger could be in a number of formats. First of all, triggers can be manually created. So we can have a manual trigger that we click on the play button, away we go. We can have a trigger that is driven by the alert, such as a SIEM instance, which is what we have here. And we can also schedule on a regular basis these alerts. So this particular one, we are looking to incorporate the alert onto the trigger and into the playbook. So we have a SIEM instance. So this is triggered. So then we are making an API call into the SIEM side of the solution where we are then running the script and we're pulling back this information and we're formatting it. And what we're looking to do here, we want to create a case. So as we create this case within the ITSM, so the ITSM for us is split into incidents for alerts and cases for playbooks. So the automation side of the solution. Then what we're doing here, we're going out and we're making API calls into the threat intelligence feed. So we're looking to check on the IP reputation. We want to check on the hash reputation, the hash of the file. We're also looking at URL and domain reputations. And then we run the script where we're filtering on the output from those calls, and we are looking for certain integers. And we're saying that if more than 3 of those fields are valid or high or set to high, then we will then go ahead and format that data, and we'll update the case along the way. So there's lots of cases being updated here. These are steps where we are injected into the case that we have created in ITSM. And we also have the ability to send emails out. So we can notify the analyst of the stages of the playbook in terms of the investigation, and we can pass information out that way as well. So we sent an email to the SOC team, to the analyst, where we are saying we have detected the presence of phishing. And what we can do is some further correlation. We can run as a sub playbook, we can embed playbooks into this playbook as a child, and we're looking to investigate on lateral movement within the infrastructure. And if we do see lateral movement, we want to raise the severity of this to 90 within the case. And then this comes to an end. So this is an investigative playbook. And at this point, the analyst has 2 options. The analyst can decide to have a manual intervention, either directly onto the system, or the analyst can drive what we refer to as a sub playbook or another playbook where they're looking to block and make changes into the firewall and potentially isolate the endpoint. Or we can be fully automated, where we can also embed as another sub playbook a playbook dedicated to isolating those IPs and domains and bring that as a full automated flow where we'll inject this into the process of the flow. But first, let us jump back and have a look at the cases that are created off the back of that playbook. As we go here at the top, we're looking at a phishing attack not flagged by the email server. And if I click into this, we'll see all of the steps that were documented as the playbook was being executed. So at the very top, we can see the trigger and when the trigger was executed. And what I wanted to pull your attention to here is that we're also sending emails out to the SOC, and we can also see what is being sent out by way of the email. So if I click on HTML data, we can see we're updating the SOC analyst and we're saying, here's IP which has been flagged, the number of engines within virus total, and we're giving information and we're automating this investigation to be a bit quicker for the analyst to get after this malware attack. Now, what's very important when you're investigating, when you're handling malware from this perspective is your time. You want to mitigate the time that this is into your environment and it's undetected and it's unremediated. So the quicker you can get at this, the better, because you're trying to avoid spread within your infrastructure. So at this stage, what the analyst can do as he's investigating and he's looking into this incident, he can decide at this point to manually run by way of clicking on this and run a playbook. And we would have a playbook for blocking. And this playbook goes into the firewall. It blocks the IPs and it blocks the domains. So here we have a playbook, and he can decide at this point to respond by way of clicking on the run playbook. And already this is pre-populated with these parameters. associated, and we go run playbook, successfully submitted. Now, if we go back here, you would have seen from a user perspective, we have updated, and we can see once this is, here we go, successfully sent email, successfully remediated. Now, just to complete the scenario, this is now a manual intervention where the analyst makes a decision and he's pushing on the play for the playbook. However, we could go back in and we could fully automate that playbook. Go to phishing. And we click here. So this was a sub playbook that had saved previous to the call, and decision could be made to break this logic flow. For example, we can break this logic flow and we can now embed this into the flow. So what you have here is a fully automated process, as easy as that, and we save it so that the investigation is completed. It is decided that this is definitely something that is a high priority. You've raised the level to 90, and then you go into full automation where you hand over into a child playbook to block on the firewalls these IPs and domains and return an exit. And this is how we can quickly remediate, we can quickly investigate, and we can document, which is also very important because when you want to replay the scenario, and maybe you want to unwind some of these changes that you're making to the environment, you need you need a process that's documented, and you need the ability to go back from a timeline basis with that investigation. And these are the ways that LogPoint can help in that quick remediation, quick identification and response, and this helps the analyst tremendously. So on average, a phishing outbreak can be up to about 3 hours to investigate fully and remediate. However, with the LogPoint tools, as we've seen here, you can pull this down to about 3 minutes to respond. And this takes a lot of the heavy lifting away from the analyst. And playbooks can also be seen as a knowledge store of best practice, where you can see here you're not missing any of these steps. As we know, engineers vary from person to person and scenarios vary, but we are ensuring that each one of these steps are completed in a timely fashion. Things are being done in parallel, so we're force multiplying on that engineer, and we bring this to a speedy conclusion so we can have the best possible outcome to remediate malware. At this point, I'll hand back to Sergio. If there's any questions at this stage, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you, Louis. Let me take back the slides. Yes. There we go. Share screen. Right. Wonderful. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Louis, for this demo. It's been super insightful. I think it has cleared any doubt that anyone could have on how LogPoint Converged SIEM works in terms of investigation, detection, investigation, and response of ransomware. It seems that we already have some questions from the audience. I also take this opportunity to remind you all that you can still use the Q&A function while we are answering some of the questions. Again, you can find it on the lower side of your screen, so you can just send your questions there. But the first question we have here is directly going direct into the business. Can you explain the licensing model of SOAR? Meaning, can I be in the case management and have someone else using playbooks?
Okay, so that particular scenario, SOAR is you're given one concurrent license within the base license of LogPoint. And what that entails is you can have a number of engineers with logon access, but no more than one user can be logged into SOAR. No more than one user can be operating the playbooks, interacting with the playbooks, and the cases are also included within that. So if you have a user already working the playbook, maybe designing or executing a playbook, and then someone wants to come in and check on some of the cases, that would not be allowed. You need to uplift on licenses, and that would entail an additional SOAR license is needed.
Thank you. Someone else also asked if we could explain a little bit more about how enrichment works in Lockpoint or in Converged SIEM.
Okay, so what LogPoint does on ingestion, as LogPoint receives the logs, we take a copy of the original log and we store that original log and we operate on the copy. So what we're doing, first of all, we're looking to normalize the log. That entails uh, we are trying to add key value pairs in, or what I refer to as correlation pointers, into the log, and that allows us to level the playing field for that common taxonomy that we like to refer to, or a common database of logs that we can go across very quickly. And as part of the process, a separate step is we're looking to enrich those logs. We want to do DNS resolution. We want to add LDAP information. We want to make calls out to threat intelligence feeds. That point, that's where we're making those queries. We're looking into threat intelligence feeds and we're checking on the reputation of IPs. We're checking on URL reputations and hash reputations by way of the file hashes. And that's where we would then put that information into the copy of the log, and then it's available for the query. So queries are driven by alerts are driven by queries. So as the queries are executed against those normalizing rich logs, then we can detect the presence of, we can flag this is phishing, this is malware, and we can then highlight that and report on it. Gives us the opportunity then to automate by way of the SOAR playbooks. And that's how we do the enrichment within LogPoint.
And there's another question, is sort of related to it, but how do I know that the platform will detect the latest ransomware? I can take it out of mind. It's as we just mentioned. Well, first of all, we have all this integration with different sources of threat intelligence, right? And the whole enrichment into the alerts. So that's on the technical part, but I think I would like to highlight something that is very important. That is, the other aspect is we have this security research team here in house. They do continuous research on the newest and the highest security risks, right? These detection rules, these playbooks, both for investigation and for response, they come with every single update that we put in Converged SIEM. So so you always have access to the latest detection rules, latest response playbooks and investigation playbooks for these latest and or very new ransomware or other type of threats. I don't see any more questions here in the Q&A feature. So I would like just to well, thank you everyone for your questions as well. Thank you for joining this webinar. We have reached the end of our webinar, but I would like to remind you that we're hosting 2 more webinars. So if you are still hungry, I would like to let you know that there is one on data exfiltration called Reducing the Risk of Data Exfiltration with Converged SIEM. This is taking place on the 13th of November. The other one, so basically in a few days, the other one is on threat intelligence called Maximizing Your Investment in Converged SIEM with Threat Hunting, and that takes place on the 7th of December. You can sign up to this and many other webinars that will come in the future by going to lockpoint.com/webinars. And that's all for today. Again, thank you very much for joining. Thank you, Louis, for today, Mon, for answering the questions. And thank you for being here in this Winning the War Against Ransomware. It's been a pleasure. And again, thank you. Until the next time, bye.